What went into the decision to give Isaiah number 23?
We got a lot of guys we felt deserved it, but just probably a lot of things. He came here in the first probably 2 years, didn't go exactly how he'd hoped. He had a lot of injuries here or there that kind of kept him limited. And so coming into this year, he'd already changed numbers anyways, and he's just battled a lot of tough things, adversities, and probably a lot of situations where most people would have transferred or quit. And then on top of it, this spring he had a great spring, he had an excellent summer, and he may be the most improved player we have in fall camp. And so I think you just think about what Jerry Levi stood for and all that he endured and how many opportunities he would have had to quit, throwing the towel, but he didn't. I think there's just a lot of parallels with Isaiah, and so I think he's deserving. I think he's earned it. I think his teammates believe that too, and so I think he was pretty humbled to wear 23 this year.
What was his reaction? Do you have a sense of what this means to him?
Yeah, you'll ask him. I know at first he kind of had the "I don't feel like I deserve it" thought, which just shows you what kind of kid he is. But I think the more he thought about it and what that means, I think he's pretty excited, pretty honored to be wearing it.
With that, also, do you have captains in place, and are you at a
We do. The team's voted on captains. I know our social media team has a way of rolling that out soon. Those guys know, and it's tough. We got a lot of guys I think deserving. We have a few more captains than we normally have, and probably some guys who aren't captains that might as well be just because of the experience and leadership they have. So hopefully that means we'll have a strong group this year.
Talk about the ability to endure, and that sometimes it's impressive to see what people can endure. I guess when did it really click with you, like, man, he's really not only enduring this, but like kind of getting stronger?
Yeah,
through this?
The spring you just said, okay, you feel like things were better. He had a great summer, and you just around him long enough to just see there's consistency. It's not like, hey, I had a few good weeks. No, like I've changed. Like I have a consistency in my demeanor. He walks around with like a kind of a joy that's contagious. And then you get into fall camp, and the first week you're like, all right, he's really making plays and he's consistent. And then you go to week 2 and you feel the same way. And then towards the end of that third week, you're just like, man, this is just like a new person. And so I think it was just a consistent process over time.
You mentioned you identified him as maybe the most improved player. What areas have you seen that improvement other than health and like morale?
Yeah, he's one of our best special teams players. If you go through the last 3.5 weeks, he's playing on a lot of our teams and playing at a consistent high level. He's a much better tackler. I think he feels more confident. He's just playing faster mentally. Your second year in the defense, I think, helps. I'm sure Coach Simon's coaching the safeties has a lot to do with that. So I think it's just a combination of everything. He's had 3 or 4 picks in fall camp, in situational like 2-minute and third down situations. So he's been a very steady, consistent player all around.
I think it was Coach Simons yesterday said probably wasn't a great practice overall yesterday. A lot of things like that, but it was Isaiah who, in 2-minute drill, picked it to end it there. What does it say about a guy who can kind of bring up the level of the group when it's not a great day? Things aren't going right, but find a way to do something like that.
Yeah. Well, I think, first of all, if you guys ever find Coach Simon happy with the day, y'all let me know. That's a DC for you. But that's leadership, right? And that's stepping up in those moments. And we're going to have plenty of games or quarters or whatever where we're not playing it the way we want to. And, like, are we able to stop that momentum, respond? And usually it's someone stepping up and making a play that kind of turns the tide for you. So it was good to see that. And, yesterday, first day of practice with school, I've done it for like 15, 16 years now. I don't know if I've ever had a good first day of practice when school started.
This is an outside observation, but you mentioned Isaiah's perseverance. It seems like a couple other guys have shown some good perseverance. I think of positions we brought in transfers and as returners and guys kind of step up.
Yeah.
I guess, is that kind of a factor you're kind of noticing with this team, that there is some kind of collective perseverance, and how common is that with the team?
I think it's hopefully just the fact that competition raises everybody's level. And some guys don't respond that way. It's very few. But most guys have responded well and raised their level, and so it's created that perseverance and that ability to respond kind of and try to be at your best. And I don't mean this in a mean way, but the guys that don't, they just kind of fall by the wayside, and either, in this day and age, they either leave and transfer, or they just don't get to play because it's the whole iron sharpens irons. It makes everybody better. And you're right, we have a lot of returning players per se that had transfers come in, and now that's raised their level to where both guys are probably going to play.
speaking of perseverance, I guess we would call this perseverance, press conference, Jordan Kerley and what he's kind of gone through with injuries and things like that the last couple of years. What have you seen from him, and how much does it mean to him to have that full off season and now be the guy? And
yeah, it's kind of like a no-no. I don't want to talk about it, but he is healthy and has had a good spring, summer, and fall camp, and I'm excited to see what maybe he can do. You know, if he can have a healthy full season. The ability's there. He's bigger, which I think helps. Every time he falls to the ground in practice, and he always gets up now. So made some good contested catches today. I think that's an area he would tell you he can still get better at. But you know, having a healthy Jordan, as we've seen over the last few years, is really good for us.
You mentioned Coach Simon's taking on the safeties coach role as well this year. Has that changed at all his interaction with you and the rest of the staff, just because he's wearing more hats?
No, I mean, because he coached the linebackers last year, so I mean, he was coaching a position. It's just a different position. I think in our defense, again, we play with 3 safeties. Really, if you count that nickel as a safety more than a corner, and it's no different than coaching the quarterbacks if you're an OC. Like, it's just, I think it's really helped because those guys have to do a lot mentally and physically in what we do for us to be good, and so I think it's really stabilized that back end for us.
With Louisiana Tech playing Saturday night, is that something we'll coaches get together and watch it live? Will you watch it live, or is it more kind of not watch it live and watch it film and really dissect
We
it?
won't get together because I'm sure they'd like to have a Saturday night without me around because they don't have a lot of those right now. But I would think most of the coaches will be watching it on TV live to some degree. For me, it may be with girls throwing stuff at me and jumping all over you. But there's different perspectives. You watch the TV copy, you see one thing, and then of course you'll have the film copy the next day. And like I said, I think it's just like last year. North Texas played a game. I think they'll have the advantage if they get the first game kinks out, especially if they win. They'll have a lot of momentum. They'll from a conditioning standpoint, all those things that we don't get. But then again, we've seen them play a game. They haven't seen us play a game yet. So it all sounds good. It all washes itself out. Whoever plays the best on the second will win. But it'll be good to kind of see, because I'm sure they brought in a lot of transfers. They're going to look a lot different than they did last year. So.
In addition to having that one game under their belt, you mentioned the transfers, one of whom came from here, Roderick Robertson.
Yeah.
Does that give them any kind of advantage simply because of his familiarity, not only with your scheme, but at least your returning players?
I'm sure it'll help him some. I mean, we've changed all our terminology and signals, not really for him. It's just every few years you change it. You play in a league, and we play a lot of people that we played a year ago or over the last few years. So all the terminology is different than from when Roderick was here. But, yeah, I mean, he knows us, and so I'm sure there may be something there, but we know him too. We're happy for him. I know it was tough for him. He was trying to decide if he wanted to keep playing or not. He's had a career full of injuries, and when he was healthy, he played really well and did a lot of great things here. So I'm excited he found a place as good as Louisiana Tech to play, and unfortunately we got to play against him, but we wish him the best.
Another perseverance question here. Preston was a 4-year starter in high school, All-American, comes here, has to sit for 2 years, and I know that wasn't easy on him. Mm-hmm. Just simply, how excited are you just to see him get an opportunity that he's worked and waited for?
I am excited. I think you asked a question earlier about common. To me, it's uncommon to have guys do what Isaiah did, what Preston's done nowadays. And it's not kids' fault. We've given them the opportunity to just bounce when it gets tough. And in my opinion, that's one of the negatives to the whole transfer piece, because so many guys, when we were growing up and even recently, they didn't have that option. So you wouldn't have a choice but to learn perseverance. It's harder to learn that now. And I think you see a guy like Isaiah, hopefully a guy like Preston, that has persevered through those first 2 years, which honestly is pretty normal to redshirt and play as like a redshirt sophomore. That's pretty good in college football. And not to mention, both those guys have played in games. But nowadays, that seems like forever for kids. And so I'm excited to watch Preston play. I think he's earned the right to go out and lead this team. I know it's, since he can remember, been a dream of his to be the starting quarterback at SMU. And the cool thing is he's earned that opportunity. And I think he'll just get better and better each week. I'm excited to watch him play.
You take the jumps, obviously from winter workouts to spring, from summer workouts to fall camp. Do you feel like the shift from fall camp to now is a big shift, or is it just kind of a little fine tuning, a little kind of notch up, or is it a bigger shift than that?
It's not as much as it used to be, because you got all summer and fall camp's different than it used to be, and then we start school. So probably not as big. I mean, it's just different because you're in school, you're about to start playing somebody, and look, we really don't know. Like, we think we have idea. We don't know how certain guys are going to respond, how they're going to play. As a team, we don't know what our identity is going to be and how we react to things. So, we're pretty beat up at a lot of positions right now. Hopefully most guys will be ready to go, but there's just so many unknowns when you start a season every year, and there's a lot of optimism at 133 schools, and Louisiana Tech and SMU are no different. So we're kind of getting to that point where we're anxious. We want to go play and kind of learn where we stand and get the process started and see how much we have to improve.